Welcome to video clip 1.3, in which we discuss business process models. So a business process model is an abstract representation of a business process serving a modeling goal. And we have seen a number of business process models already. And this is again the business process model of the insurance claim process. Now I'd like to discuss with you in how far the properties of models as identified by Stachowiak actually hold for business process models. I mean, they should hold because they are models and modeling theory should apply to all models. But still, you might find it quite interesting. All right, look at the mapping feature. In process modeling, we map relevant aspects of business processes to process models. By the way, when I say process models or when I write process models, I always mean business process models. Sometimes it's a bit too many words, so I'll just say process model, and that is, there's no difference between a business process model and a process model in this context. All right, so coming back to the mapping feature, what are the elements of the real world, of the original, of the business process that need to be mapped to the business process model? Well, it's events, certain happenings in the real world that have a meaning for the business process. And here we have, for instance, the claim received event and happening in the real world that needs to be mapped to the business process model. And other events are here claim approved and claim rejected. These are specific types of event. We will cover that later. Also, what are the aspects of business processes I need to map into the business process model? Actually, of course, it's activities. It's people are working, people are register the claim, people work in the insurance company, register the claim, they get the information, they use a form to fill out the form, to save what they filled out in an IT system that might then realize the register claim activity. And then there might be activities for deciding claim coverage, preparing letter of approval, and preparing letter of acceptance. So events need to be represented, activities need to be represented, but also the ordering of activities need to be represented and decisions need to be represented. And this is done by the edges, by the arrows here between the activities, and by certain additional nodes, which is here this branching node. We will come to the specific elements of process models a bit later, but here I just want to explain to you that we have the business process happening in the real world, and we need to decide quite carefully which are the elements of the business process that need to be represented in the process model. And this realizes the mapping feature. How about the abstraction feature? Well, a business process is very complex indeed. Many activities, not all activities, need to be represented in the process model. Otherwise, we'll be getting really huge process models that would be very hard to understand. So a business process model abstracts from aspects that are not relevant for the modeling goal. We shortly also talk about the modeling goal, but important is that process models are also models in the sense that they have the abstraction feature. We need to abstract from details of the original, of the process that are not important for the modeling goal. Space is precious, so each model should have only elements that are relevant for the particular modeling goal. That's something to bear in mind. Whatever you are modeling, be very careful not to fill the space with unrequired detail. And of course, this process model is a textbook type of process model that has just 4 activities. We've seen in reality far more complex models, but still you need to be always very precise about what to represent in the business process model and what not to represent in the business process model. We learned that the pragmatic feature is therefore for the model to substitute the original for particular modeling goal. So each business process model can replace the business process for a particular modeling goal. In our case, the modeling goal was just to understand the main steps of this insurance claim process rather than having a discussion about the process as it happens in the insurance company. We do an abstraction. We concentrate on these 4 activities, but then we can study the real-world process just using this simple abstraction. And to some extent it might, or it is correct, since most insurance claim processes will have activities like this. Right? So we look at an abstraction, but still the abstraction can replace the original for the purpose of the modeling goal. So we can say that all these 3 properties are really also present for process models. We can discuss the pragmatic feature also in the context of these, the different activities we do in process management project, that is process documentation. People working on process documentation need this process model to take a look at it, to discuss it, to improve it, and so the model replaces the original for the purpose of documentation. The model can replace the original also for the goal of process improvement. So rather than improving some intangible process that runs in the organization, we have a tangible representation. We have the process model, and we can add activities, we can split activities, we can add branches, we can delete branches, things like this to make it tangible. Therefore, also the process model can replace the original here. And of course, the same holds for process automation and also for process monitoring. So, is a process model descriptive or prescriptive? We were discussing this for models in general. Okay, take a look at these, at these important activities related to process modeling. Maybe start with process documentation. So process documentation, in process documentation, we take a look at the original, at the business process, and document it. So it's a description of what is already there. So process documentation has mainly this descriptive character. And the same holds for process monitoring. So process models also can be used in process monitoring to show in which stage a process at a point in time is. So process models describe the state of individual process instances, so to speak. And the same holds also, or similar, holds also for process documentation, of course. All right. Then we have process improvement. Process improvement has also this design idea that I want to create something, I want to design something new. I want to have a process, I want to improve it. Therefore, it starts with a descriptive character, but when I go to improvement, it has a prescriptive character. Because once I improve the process, I want to then automate the process, implement the process in the organization. The process improvement has rather a character of a prescriptive character in terms of business process models. Process automation. In process automation, we also have this prescriptive character. We have the process model, and now we need to realize it. So we need to connect the interfaces of the IT systems in a way that the process is implemented, at least the automated parts of the process is implemented like this. So also here it has a prescriptive character. So I can say similar to the plan we've seen before in the previous video, that business process models can have both a descriptive character when describing things, for instance in process documentation, but also have a prescriptive character, for instance in the area of process improvement, where I improve a process, design a process, improve it, and then this improved process model prescribes how the improved process should be executed. One of the main goals of process models is answering questions. And I have here an example of our insurance claim process, and I can ask a number of questions with this. So which activities, for instance, which activities constitute the business process? So these are 4 activities that make up let's say, make up this business process, at least the activities of the process. Which decisions need to be taken or can be taken in the process? Well, two decisions can be taken, either approval or rejection. Which event starts the process? Well, there is one event that starts the process, which is the claim received event. So whenever a claim is received, this process is started. What is the ordering of events, decisions, and activities? Well, this is can also be answered. This question can also be answered here. Which are the possible outcomes of the process? Here we see two possible outcomes. The claim is approved or the claim is rejected. Also, these questions can be answered here. So these process models provide this common language of all the roles involved in process management projects. And they can agree when I have a process model like this. Then it is quite easy to answer these questions because there is this common language. All right, we can ask and answer even more complex questions, but then the process model needs to be a bit more complex. Here, it's a process about order fulfillment. And here I have three roles. So one, organization. We come to the details a bit later. So here there are sales, warehouse management, and logistics. And here we see that activities are, let's say, positioned in certain lanes, as we call it. And when an activity is in a certain lane, that means the respective organization, department is responsible for conducting this activity or for deciding certain things. All right, who is responsible for conducting which activities? Well, I can take a look at each of these activities, look at in which lane it is, and can decide, can answer, well, who and which role is responsible for conducting a certain activity. What is also important in many projects is studying the handover of work. So handover of work means I get a result of work from certain role, take it, work on it, and pass it to another party, pass it to a co-worker, for instance. And whenever this sequence flow, whenever the sequence flow crosses lanes, crosses a lane, let's say division, then a handover of work happens. So that happens here, that happens here, that happens here, here, and here. So we can study as well here and here. So we can study the handover of work, and most of you have seen processes that had, let's say, opportunities for improvement when there were too many handovers of work. So whenever there is a handover of work, there is a chance that the process is, let's say, is delayed by this handover. So we would not like to have too many handovers of work. Who takes which decisions in the process? Also, that is we can see this here. So I think there's one decision here. Well, that's automatic decision. Here's a decision, and we can say that the warehouse management is in charge of this decision. So we can answer a bit more complex questions, and also we can answer questions related to the occurrence of errors and of handling of errors, and that is this part. We'll come to that. Sorry, we'll come to that in one of the later courses or chapters of this course. All right, so the question is, we have seen very simple process models, we have seen quite complex process models. Should a process model be simple or complex? Well, of course, by now you know that the answer is that depends on the modeling goal. A process model should be designed so that it can answer exactly the questions it is meant to answer. Simple and well-readable process models might suffice for many of the answers we ask. We want to answer using process models, but some process models need to answer complex questions, for instance, regarding detailed working procedures. And in our projects, we came across quite a complex process model. I like to show you here. It is expressed as an event-driven process chain, as an EPC, and that's a part of the process, even not the complete one, but it's part of the process. And we see here quite a complex process structure, and that has been used for in detail analyzing working procedures. But still, process models should always be understandable, so that there is a limit, a natural limit to process model complexity. And depending on the language you use to express process models, there are, let's say, ways to deal with complexity in terms of hierarchical decomposition, for instance, and BPMN is quite good at that, so that most BPMN models will have, let's say, complexity like this, or a bit higher complexity, but not consisting of hundreds of nodes as the one we've seen before, using these abstraction techniques provided by the language. Functional decomposition, for instance, we can get rid of these, let's say, very complex structured processes. And that's important because really people need also to maintain processes, people need to understand processes, and therefore we should be aware that process models would not suffer from too much complexity. All right, that concludes video clip 1.3. We took a look at business process models, defined what a business process model is. We investigated whether the three properties or features of models that we know from modeling theory really apply to process models. And we can say yes, process models support the mapping feature. Elements of the originals are mapped to the process model. Also, the abstraction feature is supported. Not all details of the original process, business process that runs in the company are represented in the model, only the ones that are important for supporting the modeling goal. We have the pragmatic feature, so that the process model can substitute the original, the business process, as it runs in the organization and in IT, can, let's say, substitute this, or that the complex process that we have in reality can be substituted by the process model for different purposes, for instance, for process documentation, for process improvement, automation, or process monitoring as well. Process models can be descriptive or prescriptive. In the early phases of projects, mostly descriptive. I describe how a process looks like. Then I go to improvement. When I go to improvement, the process model changes character from a descriptive character to a more prescriptive character, since it prescribes how the process should run in the future. Why do we do process modeling? Because we like to answer questions, and this is how we concluded this video clip.